He remembered the sound before he remembered the pain. That crack, sharp, thin, unnatural, echoed in his mind long before he knew whose bone had snapped. Later, people in the city would whisper that the moment the Mafia boss heard an 8-year-old girl scream, something inside him changed forever. But in that instant, as Marcus Hale stepped out of his black SUV and saw Lily Carter lying on the sidewalk, clutching her leg with tears streaking her cheeks, he only felt one thing: fury burning slow and cold. Marcus had seen violence his whole life, but never like this. Never against a child. The street was empty except for the skid marks of the dirt bike that had sped away just seconds before he arrived. Lily's mother, Emily, knelt beside her, trembling as she tried to hold the girl still. Marcus wasn't a doctor, but he knew the truth from the way Lily's foot twisted at the wrong angle. He knelt, removed his jacket, and placed it under her head, trying to steady his breath even as rage pressed against his ribs. He spoke softly, even though his voice was shaking. "Lily, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that." And Lily, through tears, whispered the words that changed everything. He said, "This is what happens when your mom talks to the wrong people." Marcus felt his heart slam against his chest. They had done this because Emily had asked him for help. They had punished a child to send him a message. But before we continue, I want to make a very special invitation. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and are enjoying my stories. And comment below which city you're watching us from. Now let's continue. Marcus carefully lifted Lily into his arms as she whimpered. He walked toward the SUV slowly, deliberately, because if he didn't control each step, he feared he might snap and destroy something in front of this innocent child. Emily followed close, her hands shaking, her eyes full of guilt she didn't deserve. Marcus opened the back door, laid Lily down gently, and told his driver, "St. Vincent's Hospital, now." During the drive, Lily clutched his hand. Her breathing was uneven, but she kept her eyes on him as if he were the only thing stopping her from slipping into fear completely. Marcus had built an empire on intimidation, strategy, and silence, but he had never been looked at with this kind of trust before. He felt something shift inside him, something foreign, yet strangely familiar, like a memory trying to resurface. When they arrived at the hospital, nurses rushed Lily away. Emily tried to follow, but her legs gave out and she nearly collapsed. Marcus caught her. She buried her face in her hands, choking back sobs. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I thought I could protect her. I thought they wouldn't dare." Marcus had seen grown men fall apart, but Emily's despair struck him harder than any enemy ever had. "Listen to me," he said, gripping her shoulders. "None of this is on you. This is on them, and I'm going to make sure they answer for it." Emily looked up, her eyes red. "Marcus, whoever did this, they're not just threatening you anymore. They're coming after anyone near you. You need to walk away from us, please." But Marcus shook his head. "If I walk away, they win, and Lily deserves better than that." Hours later, when a doctor finally emerged, Marcus braced himself. "Her leg is broken," the doctor said. "Severely, but it can be repaired. She's stable. She'll need time, but she'll heal." Relief hit Marcus like a wave he wasn't prepared for. He closed his eyes and let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They were allowed to see her. Lily lay small and pale beneath thin hospital blankets, her leg wrapped and elevated. Emily rushed to her side, brushing hair from the girl's forehead. Marcus stood at a distance at first, unsure if his presence would frighten her. But when Lily saw him, she stretched out her hand. "You came back," she whispered. He approached slowly, pulling a chair next to her bed. "Of course I did," he said. "I told you I wasn't going anywhere." Lily managed a faint smile. "Mom says you help people. Is that true?" Marcus swallowed. People didn't ask him things like that. They asked him for favors, fear, or silence. But this child, she wanted truth. "I try," he said quietly. "Maybe not always in the right way, but I try." Lily seemed to think about this for a moment, then nodded as if she understood something deeper than most adults. "Then help us now," she whispered. "Help Mom not be scared anymore." Emily turned away, wiping tears from her cheeks. Marcus stared at Lily, feeling a pressure in his chest he couldn't name. He had run this city's underbelly for almost 20 years. He had faced rivals, betrayals, ambushes, and threats. But nothing had ever felt as heavy or as clear as the responsibility this little girl had just placed in his hands. That was when Detective Aaron Miles entered the room. Marcus stiffened immediately. The detective and the Mafia boss had a long, complicated history. Aaron glanced at Emily and Lily before turning to Marcus. "I heard what happened," he said. "Word on the street is that the Ryder crew is behind this." Marcus didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. The Ryders had been trying to expand into his territory for months. But breaking a child's leg? This wasn't business. This was cruelty, dressed as strategy. Aaron stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Marcus, I know what you're thinking. But don't make this worse. Let me handle it." Marcus stared at him, feeling heat build under his skin. "They hurt a child," he whispered. "There's no world where I let that slide." The detective held his gaze. "If you go after them, this city will burn again. And you know who suffers when war breaks out? Families like theirs." He pointed subtly to Emily and Lily. Marcus didn't respond. He couldn't, because every word Aaron said was true, but so was the anger ripping through his chest. What Marcus didn't know, not yet, was that the attack on Lily wasn't just a message. It was part of a far deeper betrayal, one that would tear open secrets he never knew he carried. And when he uncovered the truth, the entire city would feel the shock. Marcus stayed seated beside Lily long after the detective left, long after the hospital corridor settled into its cold, late-night quiet. He watched the slow rise and fall of the girl's breathing and felt a tension spreading through him like a shadow he couldn't let go of. Emily rested in a chair on the opposite side of the bed, her arms folded, exhaustion weighing down her features. Marcus had seen fear, grief, and fury in many faces, but the look she carried tonight was something else. A mother fighting the unbearable feeling of having failed her child. He stood only when Emily whispered, "You should go home. You've done more than enough." But Marcus shook his head. "I'm not leaving you here alone, not tonight." Emily didn't argue after that. She looked too drained to push the subject further. Instead, she leaned her head back and closed her eyes, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and his growing suspicion. The Ryders had always been reckless, but they weren't stupid. Attacking a child was too extreme, even for them. It didn't align with their usual tactics. This felt orchestrated, deliberate, and meant to provoke something larger. Marcus didn't like puzzles involving innocent blood. They tended to expose truths people wanted buried. At dawn, Lily finally fell into a deeper sleep, and Emily rose to stretch. She walked quietly toward Marcus, folding her hands together as if preparing herself. "Can we talk outside?" Marcus nodded and followed her into the hallway, where the fluorescent lights hummed and cleaners pushed carts through the early morning stillness. Emily took a breath. "I didn't tell you everything yesterday." Marcus watched her face carefully. She avoided his eyes, staring instead at a crack in the wall. "2 weeks ago," she continued, "someone came to my door, a man I'd never seen. He said he represented people who didn't want me speaking to you anymore." Marcus's heart shifted in his chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily swallowed. "Because he didn't threaten me. He threatened Lily. He said if I didn't stay away from you, she'd be the one to pay the price." Marcus felt a cold weight drop through his stomach. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so it wouldn't shake. "Emily, who else knew you came to me for help?" She hesitated. "Just one person. A friend of mine named Angela. I told her because I was scared. She said she had contacts who could help if you couldn't." Marcus sighed slowly. "Emily, you should have told me from the beginning." She nodded, looking ashamed. "I know. I just didn't want to drag you deeper into our problems." Marcus couldn't help a small, bitter smile. "You think I wasn't already deep?" Emily gave a faint, tired laugh. But the moment faded quickly, replaced again by fear. "Marcus, are you going to start a war over this?" Marcus paused. War wasn't something he desired. It was something he inherited, survived, and controlled. But this was different. "I'm going to find out why they did this," he said, "and then I'll decide what comes next." He left the hospital with a heaviness in his chest that only thickened as the city woke around him. His driver, Keller, opened the car door and asked, "Where to, boss?" Marcus replied, "South Ridge, Ryder territory." Keller's eyebrows rose slightly, but he didn't question the order. That was why he had lasted so long. On the way, Marcus reviewed the facts. The Ryders had been pushing into his territory, yes. They wanted to control the northern docks. But this attack wasn't about business. It was personal. Targeting a child was meant to wound Marcus's reputation and provoke a reaction. But why? Who gained from painting him into a corner? As they entered South Ridge, Marcus noticed the shift immediately. The streets were rougher, the buildings older, the air sharper with tension. They stopped outside an abandoned auto shop that Marcus knew served as one of the Ryders' meeting spots. Keller stepped out first, scanning the street. When he nodded, Marcus exited the SUV and walked toward the rusted metal door. Inside, 4 Ryders looked up, startled. Their leader, Vince Ryder, stood near the back, arms crossed, tattoos climbing up his neck. He smirked as Marcus approached. "Didn't expect you so early," Vince said. "Or at all." Marcus didn't waste time. "You broke an 8-year-old girl's leg last night." Vince raised his eyebrows, looking genuinely confused. "What? We didn't touch any kid." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "A man on a dirt bike attacked her. Witnesses say he wore your colors." Vince scoffed. "You know our colors are easy to copy. Anyone could have done that." Marcus stepped closer. "If you're lying to me, this ends badly for you." Vince held up his hands. "Marcus, I swear on my crew, we're not behind this. We've got our problems, sure. But hurting kids? That's not how we do things." Marcus studied him carefully. Vince was impulsive, arrogant, but not a liar about something like this. If he said he didn't order it, he probably didn't. Which meant someone wanted Marcus to believe the Ryders were responsible. Someone was playing both sides. Marcus turned to leave, but Vince called out, "Hey, one more thing. 2 nights ago someone broke into one of our safe houses. Didn't take money, didn't take weapons. They took files, about you." Marcus froze. "What kind of files?" Vince shrugged. "Old surveillance, contacts, things someone could use to stir up trouble." Marcus walked out without another word, his mind racing. Someone had stolen information about him from the Ryders and then staged an attack to look like they're doing. Someone who wanted a war without being the one to start it. As he got back into the SUV, Keller asked, "Boss, did they admit it?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, and I believe them." Keller frowned. "Then who did it?" Marcus looked out at the gray, waking city. "Someone who knows how to turn ghosts into enemies." He thought of Emily, of Lily, of the threat she had received. And for the first time, he felt that old instinct, the one he trusted more than any loyalty. Something was wrong inside his own circle. What Marcus didn't realize yet was that the betrayal wasn't just close. It had already stepped into his life, smiled at him, shaken his hand, and pretended to stand at his side for years. Marcus returned to his headquarters, a discreet brick building near the waterfront, feeling the kind of tension that made his instincts sharpen like blades. The place looked the same as always, calm, orderly, guarded by men who would give their lives for him. But today, he sensed something beneath the surface, a current of unease he couldn't quite name. Inside, he found his inner circle already gathered. Daniel, his second-in-command, leaned against the long wooden table, flipping through reports. Lena, the team's strategist, sat stiffly with her arms crossed. Joseph, his oldest ally, rubbed his temples as if fighting off a headache. They all looked up the moment Marcus entered. Daniel spoke first. "We heard about the girl. How is she?" "She'll recover," Marcus replied. "But someone wants us to think the Ryders did this." Lena frowned. "You don't think it was them?" "No," Marcus said. "It was staged. Someone stole information about us from a Ryder safe house. They want a war." Joseph lifted his head. "Who would go that far? Only someone who hates you more than they fear you," Daniel added quietly. "Or someone who thinks you're getting weaker." Marcus didn't respond to that. He simply walked to the head of the table. "We're going to do this the right way. No chaos, no retaliation until we know exactly who we're dealing with." Lena nodded. "I can start digging into who's been moving in the shadows lately. Someone must be benefiting from the tension." Marcus agreed with a small nod. "Do it. But deep inside, Something bothered him. The threat Emily received. The files stolen. The attack on Lily. Each piece pointed to someone who knew Marcus's patterns, someone who understood how to provoke him in ways few ever had. Before leaving, Daniel approached him privately. "Boss, there's something else. Last week, I saw a familiar face near your home. Someone from our early days." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Who?" Daniel hesitated. "Someone I hoped we'd never see again." Marcus didn't push him further. Not yet. But the unease in Daniel's voice stayed with him as he headed toward the elevator. Something old was resurfacing. Something dangerous. He drove back to the hospital alone. Driving calmed him, helped him think. The city was alive with movement. People rushing to work, coffee shops filling with morning regulars, buses grumbling down crowded streets. All around him, life continued, indifferent to the secrets and wars that shaped the underworld beneath it. When Marcus reached Lily's room, he stopped at the doorway. Emily sat by her daughter's bed, brushing her hair gently. Lily looked brighter today, her eyes alert even though she was still pale. Marcus stepped inside, and Lily smiled. "You came back again." "I told you I would," he said, sitting beside her. Emily looked at him, her voice low. "Did you find anything?" "Not enough," Marcus admitted. "But what I did find tells me this wasn't random." Emily nodded slowly. "I felt that too. I felt like someone was watching us long before the attack." Marcus felt a chill pass through him. "Tell me everything you remember." Emily sighed. "It started a month ago. Strange cars parked near my apartment. Different men at different times. Always watching. At first, I thought it was you sending protection. But then, they didn't approach. They didn't speak. They just stared." Marcus shook his head. "I never sent anyone to your home." Emily's face drained of color. "Then who were they?" Before he could answer, the door opened quietly. A hospital nurse stepped in, carrying a clipboard. Marcus instinctively shifted, his protective instincts on full alert. But the nurse only smiled politely, just checking her vitals. As she worked, Marcus watched her movements carefully. Nothing suspicious, just routine care. But his nerves were wound too tightly for him to relax. After she left, Lily said softly, "Mom, can you get me some water?" Emily nodded and exited the room. Marcus remained seated, but Lily looked at him with a seriousness beyond her years. "Can I tell you something?" she whispered. He leaned closer. "Anything. The man who hurt me, he said something else before he left." Marcus felt his breath stop for a moment. "What did he say?" "He said, 'Tell your mom the past always comes back.'" Marcus felt something inside him freeze. The past. His past? Emily's past? Or someone else's entirely? Before he could ask her more, the door opened again. This time Daniel stepped inside. He looked tense. Too tense. "Marcus," he said under his breath, "we need to talk. Now." Marcus stood, but Lily grabbed his hand. "Don't go," she whispered. "I won't be long," he told her softly. But he wasn't sure that was true. Outside in the hallway, Daniel waited until the door closed before speaking. "I checked the hospital security footage from last night." "And?" Daniel exhaled heavily. "Someone tampered with the cameras, only for a 2-minute window, right before Lily was brought inside." Marcus's heartbeat quickened. "Who?" "We don't know yet, but—" Daniel paused. "Marcus, whoever did it had access to the hospital's internal system. That's not street-level work. That's professional. And there's something else." Daniel handed him a printed photo, a still frame from a camera in the parking lot. It showed a silhouette standing near Emily's car before the ambulance arrived. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. Marcus stared at the image, a cold recognition forming in his chest. "Tell me this isn't who I think it is," Daniel whispered. Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to, because deep down, he knew the truth. The silhouette belonged to someone he once trusted with his life. Someone who vanished years ago, leaving only questions behind. Someone Marcus believed was dead. A man named Sean Porter. Sean had been his right hand, his closest friend, a brother in everything but blood. Until the betrayal. Until the night he disappeared after selling critical information to a rival crew. Marcus had spent years hunting for answers, then eventually made peace with the idea that Sean had died in the fallout. But if this photo was real, Sean wasn't dead. He was back, and he had chosen to make his presence known through an 8-year-old child. Daniel lowered his voice. "Boss, if Sean's alive, then this is bigger than we thought. He knows everything about us, all your weaknesses." Marcus felt his jaw clench. "Not all of them." Daniel studied him. "What are you going to do?" Marcus looked down the hallway toward Lily's room. "I'm going to end this. But first, I need to know why Sean would come after me through a child." And that was when Marcus realized the most terrifying part. Sean wasn't just sending a message. He was starting a war built on old wounds and unfinished betrayals. Marcus drove away from the hospital as dusk settled over the city, his mind racing faster than the engine beneath him. The streets blurred in streaks of fading orange and deepening blue, but nothing pulled his focus away from the image burned into his memory. Sean Porter, alive, standing near Emily's car as if he had been waiting, watching, calculating. He had spent years trying to forget the night Sean vanished, years convincing himself that closure could be found in unanswered questions. But now the past had returned, sharp as broken glass. And Sean wasn't merely alive. He was provoking Marcus in the most personal way imaginable. He returned to headquarters, pushing through the doors with a determination that made the guards stiffen. Inside, Daniel, Lena, and Joseph were gathered again, tension stretching across the room like wires ready to snap. Joseph stepped forward first. "You talked to the doctor? How's the girl doing?" "She's stable," Marcus said. "But that's not what we need to discuss." Daniel exchanged a grim look with Lena before pulling up the footage on a large screen. The pixelated silhouette appeared again, the familiar posture, the tilt of the head, the way he carried weight onto his right leg. Sean had always done that, an old injury from a fight they survived together. When the image faded, silence settled heavy and suffocating. Joseph exhaled hard. "I can't believe it. After all these years," Lena crossed her arms. "If he's alive, then someone must have protected him. No one disappears that completely without help." Marcus nodded. "And now he's resurfacing, not to negotiate, not to warn, but to hurt a child connected to me." Daniel frowned deeply. "But why Lily? Why an innocent girl?" Marcus didn't answer at first. He poured himself a glass of water, took a slow breath, and finally said, "Because Sean knows something most people don't. He knows the one thing that can push me past my limits is seeing the innocent harmed." Lena tilted her head. "But that's exactly why this makes no sense. If Sean wanted you dead, he had easier ways, cleaner ways, ways that wouldn't involve a child. Unless," Daniel added slowly, "Sean isn't trying to kill you. He's trying to break you." Marcus placed the glass down, his jaw tightening. Yes, that made far more sense than any rival crew's petty attempt at intimidation. Sean had always been smart, dangerously so. If he wanted power, he would dismantle Marcus piece by piece, starting with what Marcus couldn't protect. And that list was small: Emily and Lily. Joseph rubbed his chin. "We need to locate him, quietly. If the city learns Sean's alive, every crew will think you've lost control." "I know," Marcus said. "That's why we do this in the shadows. No noise, no panic." Lena typed rapidly on her laptop. "I'll track down recent activity connected to his old contacts. Someone had to fund him, shelter him, move him." Daniel added, "And I'll speak to our street informants. If Sean's been hiding here, someone must have seen a ghost walking around." Joseph looked at Marcus carefully. "And what will you do?" Marcus turned away from the screen and walked toward the large window overlooking the city. The lights flickered across the water, reflections trembling like secrets struggling to stay buried. "I'm going to visit someone," he said softly. "Someone who might know why Sean came back." He didn't elaborate, and they didn't ask. They trusted his judgment even when they didn't understand it. Later that night, Marcus drove to a small house on the edge of the city, far from the chaos of his territory. It was quiet, modest, and surrounded by tall trees that swayed with the wind. He parked the car and sat there for a moment, staring at the porch light glowing softly. A man opened the door before Marcus even knocked. His hair had gone gray, his shoulders stooped with age, but his eyes were sharp, too sharp to belong to anyone ordinary. His name was Raymond Porter, Sean's father, Raymond stared at him with a mix of surprise and resignation. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. Marcus stepped forward. "I need answers." Raymond sighed and opened the door wider. "Come in." The house smelled like old wood and distant memories. Raymond led Marcus into a small living room where a single lamp cast a warm glow across the walls. "You found out he's alive," Raymond said. Not as a question, but as a statement. Marcus nodded. "He stood in the parking lot of a hospital last night. He watched a child being brought in with a broken leg." Raymond closed his eyes. "I was afraid of this." "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus demanded. "You knew he wasn't dead." Raymond sank into a chair, rubbing his forehead. "Sean contacted me once. Just once. Years after he disappeared. He said he couldn't return. Said he had made enemies too powerful for him to face." Marcus sat across from him. "And now he's back. Why?" Raymond hesitated. "Marcus, Sean didn't betray you the way you think he did." That statement hit Marcus like a blow. He leaned forward. "Explain." Raymond swallowed. "Sean was forced to give those people your information. They threatened someone he cared about." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Who?" "You," Raymond whispered. "They threatened your life. They told Sean they'd kill you slowly if he didn't comply. He thought he was saving you." Marcus felt the room tilt. "He didn't tell me." "He couldn't," Raymond said. "They were listening. They always listened." Marcus ran a hand over his jaw. "So he betrayed me to protect me?" "Yes," Raymond said. "And when he realized he couldn't undo what he'd done, he disappeared so they wouldn't use him again." Marcus stood slowly, the weight of the revelation pressing on him. But something still didn't add up. If he was protecting me, why target Lily? Raymond looked at him, sorrow deep in his eyes. "Because Sean believes you're the reason his life was destroyed. He saved you, Marcus. But in doing so, he lost everything. And now he's not the man you once knew. He's become someone driven by pain and resentment." Marcus took a step back. "So he blames me." "Yes," Raymond said softly. "And he thinks hurting those around you is the only way to make you feel what he felt." Marcus clenched his fists. "Then he's going to come after Emily again." Raymond nodded. "And Lily." Marcus turned toward the door. "Thank you for the truth, Raymond. But this ends now." As he stepped into the night, wind rustling the trees overhead, Marcus understood one thing clearly. This wasn't a battle over territory or power. It was personal. And Sean was coming for the people Marcus couldn't afford to lose. Marcus drove straight from Raymond Porter's house to the hospital, not because he expected Sean to strike tonight, but because the fear of being wrong lingered like smoke in his lungs. The city lights stretched across the windshield, painting brief flashes of brightness across his face, but nothing eased the tightening in his chest. If Raymond was right, then Sean's return wasn't just strategic. It was emotional, desperate, and unpredictable. That made him more dangerous than any enemy Marcus had ever faced. When he reached Lily's room, he found Emily awake, sitting in the dim light beside her daughter. Lily slept soundly, her small hands curled loosely around the blanket. Emily looked up at Marcus the moment he walked in, her eyes filled with a mixture of worry and exhaustion. "You disappeared for hours," she whispered. "Did something happen?" Marcus closed the door softly and approached her. "I found out who's behind this. Someone from my past." Emily straightened. "Someone you trusted?" "Yes," Marcus said quietly. "Someone I once considered family." Emily studied his face for a long moment. "And now he wants to hurt you?" Marcus hesitated before answering. "He wants to hurt the people around me. That's why Lily was targeted." Emily swallowed hard, her gaze flickering toward her daughter. "So we were right to be afraid." "Yes," Marcus said. "But you're not alone in this. I won't let him come near you again." Emily let out a trembling breath. "I don't know how you stay so calm." "I'm not calm," Marcus admitted. "I'm focused." Before they could continue, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Daniel appeared in the doorway, glancing both ways before stepping inside. He closed the door quickly. "We have a bigger problem," Daniel said quietly. "Sean has been spotted again." Marcus frowned. "Where?" "Near the waterfront. He didn't try to hide. It was almost like he wanted us to know he was there." Emily shivered. "What does he want?" Daniel looked at Marcus instead of answering. "We need to talk. Privately." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Emily's shoulder. "I'll be right back." He followed Daniel into the hallway. The air felt colder here, sharpened by fluorescent lights that hummed faintly overhead. Daniel's jaw was set, his posture tense. "What else did you find?" Marcus asked. Daniel exhaled. "I spoke to Benny, the contact on the docks. He said Sean's been asking questions about Emily, about Lily. Not just where they live, but their routines, the hospital schedule, everything." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "He's planning another move." "That's what I think too," Daniel said. "But there's more. He's not working alone." Marcus stiffened. "Who's helping him?" Daniel hesitated. "Someone with access. Someone close." "We don't know who yet, but Sean has inside information. He knows your movements. He knows your security patterns." Marcus clenched his fists. "A traitor inside my ranks." Daniel nodded. "And with everything happening, he's counting on you losing trust in your team." Marcus leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment. Betrayal from outside was manageable. Betrayal from inside could destroy him. "We need to find this traitor before Sean makes his next move." Daniel nodded. "I'll start narrowing down suspects." Marcus returned to Lily's room with a heaviness that made each step feel slower. Emily looked at him with silent questions, but he couldn't answer them yet. Not until he had clarity. Not until he had control. Lily stirred just then, blinking awake. "Marcus," she whispered. He leaned beside her bed. "I'm here." She smiled weakly. "Can you stay a little longer?" "Of course," he said. Emily watched the two of them, her expression softening. For a moment, the tension broke. For a moment, they were simply three people sharing a fragile quiet. "But before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in his place. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills. Agora vamos continuar." Emily eventually stepped into the hallway to make a call, leaving Marcus alone with Lily. The little girl studied him with eyes that were far too perceptive for her age. "You look sad," she said. Marcus forced a soft smile. "I'm not sad, just thinking." "About the man who hurt me?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he said. "I'm trying to understand why he did it." Lily's expression grew serious. "Mom says sometimes people get lost inside their own pain." Marcus blinked, surprised by the depth of her words. "Your mom is very wise. She says pain can make people see the world the wrong way," Lily continued. "Like looking through a broken window." Marcus nodded slowly. "She's right. Maybe he thinks hurting people will make him feel better," Lily whispered. "But it won't." Marcus felt something tighten in his throat. This child, who had experienced fear and injury, still believed in healing more than destruction. Her strength humbled him in ways he hadn't expected. Before he could respond, Emily rushed back into the room, her voice frantic. "Marcus, someone just called my phone. A blocked number." Marcus straightened immediately. "What did they say?" Emily's hands trembled. "It wasn't a threat. It was music. A song Sean used to play when he visited your old place. The one you two wrote together." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Sean wasn't hiding anymore. He was provoking Marcus deliberately, weaving memories into warnings. Emily continued, and then the voice said, "Tell him I'm ready." Marcus stepped away, his breath thick with anger and disbelief. Sean wasn't just taunting him. He was pulling him back into a past Marcus had tried to bury. A past built on brotherhood, loyalty, and betrayal. Daniel entered the room again, urgency written across his face. "Boss, we just intercepted a message, a meeting request. Tonight, Sean wants to see you." Emily's face drained of color. "Marcus, no, it's a trap." Marcus nodded. "Of course it's a trap." Daniel added, "The location is the old steel mill, abandoned for years, the perfect setup." Marcus took a slow breath. "I'm going." Emily grabbed his arm. "If you go, he'll kill you." Marcus shook his head. "If I don't go, he'll come for you and Lily again. This ends tonight." Emily's voice broke. "Then promise me something." "What?" "If this man was once your friend, promise me you won't let your anger blind you to the truth, because whatever happened between you two, there's more to it." Marcus met her gaze and whispered, "I promise." As he walked away, Daniel at his side, Marcus felt an unsettling realization settle inside him. Sean didn't just want revenge, he wanted closure, and he was willing to burn the entire city to get it. The abandoned steel mill stood like a wounded giant at the edge of the city, its towering frames rusted and hollow, its broken windows staring back like dark, empty eyes. Marcus had been here before, years ago, when he and Sean were still brothers in everything but blood. Back then, the mill had been a place to strategize, to plan, to laugh in rare moments of calm. Now, it looked more like a graveyard for memories he wished he'd never have to revisit. Marcus stepped out of the SUV, the wind cutting sharp across his face. Daniel came with him, but Marcus lifted a hand, stopping him. "Not this time," Marcus said. "He wants me alone." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Boss, this is exactly what he wants. Walking into this place by yourself is the only way to keep him from targeting Emily and Lily again," Marcus said firmly. "If something happens, you move in, but not before." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be nearby. And Marcus, be careful." Marcus approached the mill slowly, listening to the crunch of gravel under his boots. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became, as if the entire world were holding its breath. The air smelled of metal and dust, and old memories pressed against him like walls closing in. He entered the main hall, the large open space lit only by moonlight filtering through shattered windows. Shadows stretched long and thin across the floor. For a moment, all was silent. Then a voice echoed from the far side of the room. "You came." Marcus turned. Sean Porter stepped out from behind a rusted support beam, his silhouette familiar yet changed. His hair was longer, streaked with gray. His face was sharper, worn by years of running and hiding, but his eyes, those deep blue eyes that once held warmth, now burned with something colder, harder. Marcus took a slow step forward. "You hurt a child, Sean." Sean smirked. "I knew that would get you here." Marcus's voice hardened. "Why her? Why drag an 8-year-old into this?" Sean walked closer, his boots echoing across the concrete. "Because you wouldn't pay attention otherwise. You needed a reason to see me." "I would have listened," Marcus said. "You didn't need to do this." Sean laughed bitterly. "You think you would have listened? After what happened? After the way you looked at me the night everything fell apart?" Marcus didn't respond. He remembered that night well, the disbelief, the betrayal, the way Sean had vanished with information that nearly cost them everything. But tonight, he needed the truth more than his pride. "You could have talked to me," Marcus said carefully. "You should have told me the truth." Sean's expression twisted. "I tried, but by then, they had ears everywhere. They wanted you dead, Marcus. They wanted to rip the empire out from under you, and they used me to do it." Marcus stepped forward. "Raymond told me." Sean blinked, anger flickering behind his eyes. "He had no right." "He told me you thought you were saving my life," Marcus continued. "He told me you believed you had no choice." Sean's jaw clenched. "I didn't." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then why come back now? Why target Emily and her daughter?" Sean looked away for a moment, then back, his voice thick with something dark. "Because I lost everything. My home, my identity, every ally I ever had. And all of it was because I tried to save you. Do you know what it's like, Marcus? To sacrifice everything for someone, only for that person to believe you're a traitor." Marcus felt the words hit him hard. "Sean, you disappeared. You left me without answers, without anything." "I had to," Sean snapped. "If I stayed, they would have killed me, and then they would have killed you." Marcus studied him carefully. There was truth there, real truth, but also bitterness, resentment, and a grief so deep it distorted everything around it. Sean took a step closer. "You rebuilt your life, your reputation, your empire. You became stronger. But me, I became nothing, a shadow." Marcus shook his head. "So you think hurting a child will fix that? That it will make me understand your pain?" Sean's voice cracked, the anger blending with anguish. "I wanted you to feel powerless, the way I felt when my life was destroyed." Marcus held his gaze. "And now? What do you want now?" Sean didn't answer right away. He simply stared at Marcus with an expression torn between hatred and longing for the friendship they once shared. "I want you to admit you owe me," he whispered. that everything you built wouldn't exist if I hadn't taken the fall. Marcus didn't move. You made choices I didn't understand, but I never wanted your life destroyed. Sean's eyes glistened with something fragile. Too late for that. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Then something shifted in Sean's posture. His eyes darted toward the entrance of the mill. Marcus followed the movement instinctively. Someone else was here. Sean, Marcus said slowly. Who else came with you? Sean didn't answer. Instead, he took a step back, suddenly tense. I didn't come alone, he said quietly. They wouldn't let me. Marcus's breath stilled. Who? But before Sean could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows, lean, hooded, and holding a metal pipe. Then another, and another. 3 figures in total. Their movements were sharp, coordinated, professional. Daniel's warning from earlier echoed in Marcus's mind. He's not working alone. Sean lifted a hand. Stop. This is between me and him. But the tallest figure ignored him. Orders changed, the man said, voice low and distorted. We finish this tonight. Marcus took a defensive step back, his muscles tensing. Sean, control them, now. Sean swallowed, panic appearing at the edges of his expression. I didn't agree to this. They weren't supposed to. The tallest figure raised the pipe, and the moonlight reflected off the cold metal. Daniel burst in through the entrance at that exact moment, shouting Marcus's name. Everything erupted at once. The intruders lunged. Sean tried to stop them. Daniel rushed toward Marcus, and the air exploded into chaos. But amid the movement, the sound, the tension, Marcus saw one thing with absolute clarity. Sean wasn't the mastermind. He was a puppet. Someone else, someone hidden, was pulling the strings. The steel mill echoed with chaos. Shouts, metal striking metal, boots scraping across concrete. Marcus reacted on instinct, ducking the first swing aimed at his head. The metal pipe whistled through the air, missing him by inches. Daniel charged toward one of the intruders, tackling him hard enough to send both crashing against a rusted column. Sean shouted, "Stop! This wasn't supposed to happen!" His voice cracked with desperation, but the intruders ignored him completely. The tallest man lunged again. Marcus dodged left, grabbed a length of fallen rebar, and deflected the next strike. Sparks scattered across the concrete floor. Everything inside him narrowed to a single point. Survive long enough to understand who was behind this. Because Sean had just proven one undeniable truth. He wasn't in control. The second masked intruder circled Marcus from behind. Marcus heard the footsteps a split second before the attack and spun, blocking the swing with the rebar. The force vibrated up his arms. He shoved the man back and regained footing. "Sean!" Marcus yelled. "Who are they? Who sent them?" Sean looked trapped, cornered between guilt and fear. "I don't know their names, I swear. They're the people who kept me hidden all these years. They control everything." Daniel grunted, pinning one of the intruders and ripping off his hood. The man was young, mid-20s, shaved head, unfamiliar. Definitely not Ryder territory. Definitely not local. "They're not from here," Daniel shouted. "This is a hired crew." Marcus didn't have time to answer. The tall figure came at him again, relentless. Marcus blocked one strike, another, then stepped into the man's reach, slamming his shoulder into the intruder's chest. The man stumbled. Marcus lifted the rebar, ready to end the fight, but something made him stop. The tall man froze, his head tilted as if listening to an unheard command. Then he stepped back and spoke calmly, the distorted voice clearer now. "New orders. Pull out." The intruders retreated instantly. No hesitation, no confusion. They moved in perfect coordination, slipping back into the shadows like ghosts. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving only the echo of their departure and the tension trembling in the air. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. That wasn't random. That was military precision. Marcus turned to Sean. His former friend stood trembling, his face drained of all color. "Sean," Marcus said slowly, "you're done hiding. You tell me who controls you, or this city will become a battlefield." Sean shook his head miserably. "I can't. If I speak—" "You already spoke," Marcus cut in. "You came here. You lured me here. You involved a child. You crossed every line." Sean stepped back, breathing hard. "I thought I thought if I confronted you, I'd get answers too. I thought they'd let me talk to you. But they're not letting me choose anymore. Marcus approached him. Who are they? Sean's eyes finally lifted, and for the first time tonight, Marcus saw real terror there. They're the ones who destroyed my life. And they'll destroy yours too. They've been watching you for years, Marcus. Every move you made, every ally you trusted. They're everywhere. Daniel exchanged a tense glance with Marcus. Someone with that kind of reach would need money, power, and information. A lot of it. Sean nodded shakily. They're not a gang, not a crew. They're businessmen, dirty ones, corrupt ones. They funded half the violence in this city while pretending to be saviors. And now they're after you. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Why me? Because you're the only one they couldn't control, Sean whispered. Marcus exhaled slowly, letting the truth wash over him. This wasn't about old betrayal. It wasn't about territory. It wasn't even about revenge. This was about power. Sean opened his mouth to speak again, but a faint click echoed through the mill. Marcus recognized it instantly, the sound of a rifle safety being disengaged. Down! Marcus yelled. He grabbed Sean and dragged him behind a pillar just as a bullet struck the metal beam above them. Daniel dove behind a stack of crates. More shots came. Precise, controlled. A sniper. Sean gasped. They followed me. They want to erase loose ends. Marcus peeked around the pillar. A faint flicker of movement on the catwalk above. Someone cloaked in darkness. Too far to see clearly, but definitely aiming. Daniel shouted, "We need to move." Marcus nodded. "Sean, stay behind me." Sean trembled but followed. They moved low across the floor, keeping close to the thick support beams. Another bullet hit the concrete, spraying dust and chips of metal. They reached the far exit. Marcus kicked open the rusted door, and Daniel sprinted out first, scanning the shadows. "Clear! Move!" Marcus shoved Sean through the doorway and followed. Once outside, the cool night air hit them like a shock. Daniel waved them toward the SUV. "Go!" They piled in, and Daniel slammed the gas. Tires screeched as the vehicle sped away from the mill. The sniper didn't follow. For several minutes, no one spoke. Marcus stared out the window, the abandoned mill shrinking behind them. His mind churned with questions, fragments of truths, and the undeniable realization that the threat wasn't just near, it was inside the city's spine. Sean finally whispered, "I'm sorry, Marcus. I wanted to fix things. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know who else to turn to." Marcus turned his head slowly. "Then start helping me, because innocent people are getting hurt, and that ends now." Sean nodded, tears forming. "I will, I swear." Before we continue, I want to invite you to leave a comment telling me what you think of the story so far and what you would do in Marcus's place. Your support helps this channel grow and reach more people. Agora vamos continuar. Daniel cleared his throat. "Boss, there's something else. Benny just called. He found out who's been laundering money for the group controlling Sean." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Who?" Daniel hesitated. "It's someone we know. Someone close." Marcus felt his pulse tighten. "Say the name." Daniel swallowed. "Joseph." Silence filled the SUV. Heavy, crushing, undeniable. Joseph. The man who'd been with Marcus from the beginning. The man he trusted more than anyone else. Sean whispered, "I told you. They're everywhere." Marcus clenched his fists. He knew what he had to do now. And it would end everything. Marcus stared at Daniel, absorbing the weight of the name he had spoken. Joseph, the man who had held him up through the darkest years. The man who had sworn loyalty on nights when loyalty seemed impossible. The man who had visited Lily just hours before, offering comfort as if he weren't hiding the knife behind his back. Sean watched Marcus closely, his expression torn between fear and guilt. "I didn't know Joseph was one of them. They never showed me names. Only orders." Marcus took a long breath, steadying the storm building inside him. "We end this tonight." Daniel nodded. "I already traced Joseph's location. He's at the waterfront warehouse. Looks like he's expecting a shipment." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Of course he is. They always use business as a mask." Sean swallowed hard. "They'll be guarding him. Heavy protection." "Good," Marcus said. I don't want him slipping away. The SUV sped through the empty late-night streets. Marcus leaned back, eyes fixed forward, forcing himself to breathe evenly. Betrayal was a language he had learned early in life, but Joseph's betrayal carved deeper than anything Sean had done, because Joseph had pretended to stand at his side even as he fed information to the enemy. Daniel parked the SUV 2 blocks from the warehouse. The building loomed against the water, its metal siding reflecting the moonlight in fractured streaks. Shadows moved inside, organized, purposeful. A team on alert. Daniel handed Marcus an earpiece. I'll flank from the south entrance. You take the main. Sean stays behind until it's safe. Sean frowned. Let me help. Marcus turned to him. You will, when the time is right. Sean lowered his head, accepting the command. Marcus approached the warehouse alone, each step firm but quiet. The smell of salt water and rust mixed in the air. From inside, faint voices carried through the metal walls. 2 guards stood at the entrance, talking casually. They never saw Marcus coming. He moved fast, disarming one and knocking the other unconscious without unnecessary harm. He slipped through the main door. Inside, the warehouse stretched wide and dim, crates stacked high, forklifts parked in the shadows. And there, near a table lit by a single hanging bulb, stood Joseph. He looked older tonight, older than all the years Marcus had known him. Lines of stress cut deep across his face. But when he saw Marcus, he didn't look surprised. Marcus, Joseph said softly. I wondered how long it would take. Marcus stepped forward. Why? Joseph sighed, resting a hand on the table. Because survival is a cruel teacher. The people you're fighting, they approached me years ago, after Sean disappeared. They said you were becoming too powerful, too unpredictable. They offered protection, money, influence, and I took it. Marcus clenched his fists. You sold out our family. I saved it, Joseph insisted. Marcus, you don't understand what they're capable of. This city bows to them. Politicians, bankers, law enforcement. Every layer is tied to them. Working with them was the only way to survive. Hurting a child was not survival, Marcus snapped. Joseph looked away. His silence was answer enough. Marcus advanced. You gave them information about me. You helped them manipulate Sean. You helped them target Emily. Lily. Joseph swallowed. That wasn't my decision. They act without warning. I tried to steer them away from the worst of it, but you stayed, Marcus said. You kept helping. Joseph's eyes glimmered with something like regret. Because I was afraid of dying, Marcus. I was afraid of losing everything. Marcus felt something in him crack. I would have protected you. I always did. Joseph's voice broke. I know. And that made the betrayal easier, because I knew you'd forgive me for it, at least at first. Before Marcus could respond, a sharp mechanical click echoed behind him. Sean stood at the doorway, hands shaking, a pistol aimed loosely at the floor. His breathing was uneven. Joseph, Sean said quietly, you destroyed my life too. Joseph's shoulders slumped. Sean, you weren't supposed to get caught in the crossfire. Sean's hand trembled. I trusted you. You were like an uncle to me. Marcus stepped between them slowly. Sean, put the gun down. Sean's eyes filled with tears. He ruined everything. Marcus spoke gently but firmly. We're not here to spill more blood. We're here to end what they started. Sean's arm wavered. Then, after a long breath, he lowered the pistol. Marcus placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Joseph exhaled shakily. Marcus, I know there's nothing I can say to undo what I did, but if you spare me, I'll testify. I'll help you dismantle them from the inside. Marcus studied him. You want mercy because you're scared, not because you changed. Joseph didn't deny it. Before Marcus could decide what to do, heavy footsteps thundered from outside. The warehouse lights flickered. Daniel's voice crackled in Marcus's earpiece. Boss, they're coming. Reinforcements. A lot of them. Joseph paled. They've been watching me. They know you're here. Marcus turned to Sean. Get to the SUV. Take the back exit. Daniel will meet you. Sean nodded and ran. Marcus faced Joseph. You need to choose. Right now. Stand with me or die for them. Joseph hesitated. Only a second. Then he whispered, I'll stand with you. Gunfire burst through the warehouse doors. Marcus shoved Joseph behind the crates and returned fire, not to kill, but to hold them back long enough for Daniel and Sean to escape. The battle lasted minutes that felt like hours. When it finally ended, the reinforcements retreated, leaving the warehouse echoing with heavy breaths and settling dust. Daniel ran in. "Boss, Sean's safe. Emily and Lily are secure too." Marcus nodded, relief washing over him. Joseph stood shakily. "What now?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice steady. "Now you make things right. You testify. You give their names, their accounts, their history, everything." Joseph swallowed. "And if I do? You walk away alive," Marcus said, "but never near me or mine again." Joseph bowed his head. "I accept that." Days later, Joseph's testimony exposed the entire network of corrupt businessmen. Arrests swept the city. Officials resigned. The empire that had manipulated Sean and targeted Lily collapsed from the inside. Sean met with Marcus at the hospital one last time. Lily was recovering well, smiling shyly at the two men as they stood at her bedside. "Thank you," Sean whispered, "for believing there was something left in me worth saving." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. There always was. Emily approached, tears in her eyes. "Marcus, you saved us." He gazed at Lily, her bright smile warming a place he thought was long dead. "You saved me too." As Marcus left the hospital, the sunrise washed the streets in gold. The city felt cleaner, quieter, new. Some battles destroyed everything, but this one rebuilt him. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.